I did name her Ingrid just because she's been a real stubborn German bitch. And that seemed like, when I think really stubborn German, I tend to think that name. So, not knocking any German women named Ingrid by any means, but that's the name I thought of. She fought me all the way. Quick little update, run you through a few things that I've been kind of working on. Kind of started to snowball, as most of you have probably seen if you mess with a VW. It snowballs pretty quickly. Basically 5 months of heater channels, rear body mounts, Napoleon hat, frame head bottom plate, the cross members in here that I had to replace, running the clutch tube, running a new stainless line, and I have not closed up my holes yet on the front side or back here, because I want to make sure, of course, when I take it for a drive, that clutch tube is solid and there's nothing I need to get back into before I weld that one back up. This one's getting that air cooled. The one that's up there is getting that air cooled little plate. And once the headliner's in, then I'll start doing the seals, which that's that whole box of stuff. Redid my pedal cluster here. I did order the roller for it because I don't like this. It's really sloppy. I test fitted the fender and I test fitted the other fender, front fender too, to see how the T-bars and all that stuff are gonna look and fit in there. And I don't like how perfectly chrome they are, so they're gonna be sitting outside and get a little weathered before they actually go in the car. But there's kind of a full look. One little spot that I've got to fix there. This little piece of metal I got to replace. Not sure what I'm going to do there quite yet. I'm not trying to make it look perfect. I just want to get something in there, some metal in there, and I'll probably just throw some piece of metal in there and get that fender weld nut in for the fender. I can bolt it together. Maybe throw some fiberglass over the top of it so it doesn't look horrible. Try to blend the paint a little bit. I kind of got it close in the wheel wells, although it's going to be low and you'll never see the wheel wells. That's what I've been working on. That's not been fun. I have this section that I had to cut out because it was completely rusty from here all the way over. And again, I don't want to paint this. And I don't want to do any body work, so I'm not fixing any dents or anything, but I had to fix this because that's where the fender mounts, and then that would allow water and all that up. So I actually made a piece, just a patch that came over and then folded under. Kind of see, I just cut it out of plain steel and then used the Wolfsburg West fender weld nuts, and that's what I kind of have so far. I just added a little bit of fiberglass and put a little Bondo over it and seam seal the back edge of it. Again, I'm not trying to do a bunch of body work, and then I'm just going to try to blend this in with the same color that I use with the heater channels, and then I can wet sand the whole thing eventually, and hopefully it will not be as noticeable once the fender's on. I mean, it's only going to see, about 2 inches of it, so. But piece by piece, just want to get the fenders on. Front fenders and everything are already on, everything's mounted, so pretty much just finishing up a few little things. It's blending pretty well. I mean, the stuff that's up here is sanded with like 1500, so it's really dull. But I think if I sand everything in and after it all gets wet sanded and buffed, I don't think you'll notice it. Again, it's not a big area, but I am definitely not a body guy, but I needed to do it and kind of do it right to seal it up. Last thing I want is this thing to start rusting out even more. I want to try to stop all the rust that's currently there, and hopefully I've done that. Worked on the wiring harness. So the new wiring harness I've got in, that's going to be nice that I don't have to worry about that old crappy wiring harness, and I went ahead and sealed it all the way back up. So, you know, budget kind of went a little bit out of control. Well, I'm just going to buy the valve covers. Well, I'm not going to go with the stock carb since I've done this. I'm going to go ahead and not put a stock cam in it and put a 110 in it. I want to get a tap for full flow. Go ahead and put a filter on it. I don't need the extra cooler. It's not a big engine, but you know, it just keeps going. I did buy all of my tin. I know I've seen Jawbreaker and Haptic Garage and all those guys having to do some stuff manipulating with some of the cheap tins. And I can tell you, I've had to do that many times myself. Maybe not to the extent that those guys are going. Definitely not. I get aggravated and I just throw the shit away at that point. So much love to those guys for having that kind of patience. But this is the Scat tight fit, and it does fit very well. I can tell you that it's probably one of the best fitting and one of the best built shrouds, aftermarket shrouds I've played with. And I've only had my hands, again, I'm not a professional or anything like that. I've only had my hands on probably 6 or 8 of these different shrouds other than the stock ones, but this is by far the best fitting shroud I've seen, and it actually fit down on the lip on both sides almost immediately without hardly doing anything to them. So definite, if you're going to look at shrouds, the Scat is a little bit more money, but man, is it worth it. Extra exhaust, you know, there was extra money I didn't plan for. You know, the dual 34s, it's just piece by piece. There's always little stuff. I did, my newest project was building a start stand. I borrowed one from a buddy that's sitting over there. But before anybody freaks out, yes, I cut up a transmission. But there's why. It's toast, and it's actually corroding in the center of the bell housing too, which I was gonna just cut off the entire bell housing, but that is why I cut it up. It's not usable at all. As you can see, I had to go with a lower profile tire on the fronts. So these are, shit, what are these? 165/50 15s in the front. So I did have to, for some of you that have seen it and saw once the body was on it and how much the tires were tucked up, there's probably some of you guessing like, oh, what the hell? That's not gonna even turn. Well, I knew that. And I was just going in and out of the garage straight. I wasn't having to do anything crazy. So that's kind of it. I do have a lot of work I'm doing in here. I did something kind of crazy because I'm a 90s kid. I graduated in the 90s and I was a skater, a little skater punk. So I figured I would do the cover on all like 90s skateboards stuff. So all the old Vision streetwear and the Ghostbusters and Alien Workshop and Spitfire and all, you know, Powell Peralta. Some of you guys remember that stuff from the 90s. We're skater kids. That's kind of what I grew up on. Airwalk. I hadn't seen Airwalk or Vision streetwear in 20 years. So it's was kind of cool. So that'll be going up there. That'll be like my little collage. This guy is on the ground. I've got a couple issues that I got to try to figure out. Like, I think I need to adjust that sway bar I tried to get it back, you know, get this. I thought this curve was actually supposed to come up a little bit more into the beam and go back further, but it seems like it's almost as far back as it could go. So I don't know if anybody knows, but that does not seem right to me. I mean, it's like an inch off the ground. I know it would be low, but I don't know. So overall, it's just a little bit by little bit. I'll be running the, try to get all the brake stuff wrapped up and get the I can't speak, get the brakes bled before I try to put the motor and everything in, because I know what's going to happen once I get the motor in it, with or without interior and everything else in it, or windows. So I've got about 3 weeks. By October, I'd like to be driving it. Maybe not to its full extent, but I'd like to drive it. Even if it's just like 2 blocks, just to drive it.